In the Combat Plans Division, you make your final ATO by doing things like producing an air attack plan, adding any airspace coordination orders you need to, and producing the final air tasking order by adding specialized missions such as combat search and rescue and anti-submarine warfare. You start the process by making your final changes to the prioritized target list. This shows you a list of targets that you want to strike, their current status, and the type of target they represent. You can add to this list, delete entries from the list, or change the priority of items in the list by moving them up and down. You next produce an air attack plan relative to your target list. You typically start with the first target in the list and work your way down. If I select this missile site and then click on Attacks, it shows me aircraft that are capable of striking that target and the estimated damage for the entire squadron. If I select one of these and say Task, it gives me a flight of 1, and associated with that flight it gives me a damage estimate of what a strike by that flight would achieve. I can say OK, and then I see that relative to this first target, my one attack has an estimate of 140% damage, which results in destruction of the target, so I'll move on. The second target is an airbase. If I click on Attacks, I might go in and say, let's take this squadron of B-1s, task that resulting in a flight of 1, increment that to get a flight of 4. At this point, with my flight of 4, my damage estimate is 51%. So relative to that target, I estimate that I'll get a 51% destruction of that target, but not complete destruction, so I probably want to go back and add some more strikes to that target. In this example, I'll go ahead and plan the airspace coordination orders. In the ACO dialog, you can see a list of missions that have been scheduled so far. I can take the B-2 strike mission, for example, and plan its ingress and egress. Clicking on the Ingress button, I see a list of available routes. Pick one of these for ingress and say OK. Likewise for egress, I see a list of routes for egress. Pick one of those and say OK. Now I've done complete planning on the flight of the aircraft from the base to the target and back. I can also set a time on target. The time it shows here is the earliest time that that aircraft could arrive on the target. Let's say I want to delay that to coordinate with other things happening in the theater. I can set a time of, let's say, 1500, and that then becomes the time on target for that strike. At this point, I'm ready to produce the final ATO. The air tasking order dialog shows all the missions that I've scheduled so far, where they originate from, what their mission is, their objective, and their time on target or time on station. If I want to add to these, I can click on the Add button, and it brings up a list of available missions: air superiority, combat search and rescue, suppression of enemy air defenses, close air support, and anti-submarine warfare. These all pretty much occur the same except for suppression of enemy air defenses, which can be scheduled relative to a track or a specific site. For example, if I wanted to add an air superiority mission, I could click on OK here. It brings up a list of available squadrons. I can pick one of those, say Task, which gives me a flight of 1, increment that to get a flight of 2. Say OK. At this point, I'm given the option to add it to the selected package in the ATO or add it as an independent flight. For example, if I wanted to add these aircraft as an escort to a strike mission, I could add them to a selected package. But in this case, I'll say add as an independent flight. It brings up a list of tracks to select from. I can pick one of these, say OK, and in the patrol dialog accept the defaults. Now I've established an air superiority mission here in the ATO. Another thing you can do here is look at your allocation. This shows you the allocation of missions that you've done so far relative to the apportionment that was established in the strategy division. You can see here that only 6% of the assets have been scheduled so far, and then compare how your distribution of those compares with the guidance given by the strategy division. Also notice that there's an update button in multiplayer mode so that you can update the air tasking order that you see relative to the scheduling done by other players. Finally then, when you're happy with your complete air tasking order, you can go to Combat Ops, and you have the option to execute the current air tasking order. This will transition to the main program. Notice that it saves a copy of the ATO as a CSV file, and it also saves a backup copy of the ATO with a 1 appended to the name, so you can go back and recover that ATO if you want to go back and make any more changes. If you execute your ATO from multiplayer mode in the Air Tasking Order editor, you'll transition to the main program in multiplayer mode as well.